Welcome to today's episode of Table Talk with
the Mercer County ESC.
All right. Okay, first off, Emily's face every time that we start a podcast, like I can't even explain it because that's how the last blooper was in our last podcast.
Yeah.
So
I don't know what to do with my face.
She's always uncomfortable in our podcast videos. So today we're going to start off with a Lindsay and Emily shenanigan story. I'm going to get a little bit of background about this before we actually tell the story, because I have started to eat plant-based diet through the week. And today Emily said, hey, at lunch, I'm going to run to Walmart. And I was like, oh, this is great. Could you pick me up some panko bread?
What are you making? What are you making? That's the context that we need.
So I am making cauliflower wings.
Where'd you get the idea?
TikTok.
Of course you did.
I always get my ideas from TikTok. So I had told her that I was going to try this. Okay. So she's going to Walmart and she's going to pick me up some panko breadcrumbs.
Yeah. So I get to Walmart and I'm getting the breadcrumbs first. Like I'm going to get the breadcrumbs first so I don't forget. So I walk straight. Well, no, I don't even walk straight to the breadcrumb aisle because do you know where breadcrumbs are? No, I don't either. So I walk down 4 aisles, can't find them. So I finally asked one of the nice ladies that's, getting groceries for somebody else. And I'm like, where are the breadcrumbs? They're in the baking aisle in case anybody needs to know that for future reference. So I am standing in front of the breadcrumbs. First, I have to decide between Great Value and the normal brand. And Homegirl's bougie. So that was an easy decision. I went for the name brand. So then I'm like, oh my gosh, there is seasoned. And there is original panko breadcrumbs. No big deal. Shoot Lindsay a quick text. I know she's presenting, so I'm like, oh, this is questionable. So I shoot her a quick text, and then I'm like, I'll just go look at the clearance. Like, it's all good. So I take a little walk around Walmart. I still haven't heard from Lindsay. So I go to my husband. I text my husband. I give him the whole scenario you just got. I said, what would you buy? He goes, oh, seasoned for sure. But see, my husband doesn't know Lindsay the way I know Lindsay. And
so right away, you were already like, probably plain. I mean, remember, I am the peanut butter.
She is the peanut butter. But also, what you need to know about Lindsay is if you think something is the right choice, if you're choosing for Lindsay, choose the opposite of that choice. Like, that's what you need to do. So this is my fault. I should have known this from the start. So he says seasoned. That's what my gut was kind of saying, too, because cauliflower is a little like peanut butter. Mm-hmm. So then I'm like, you know what? I better text someone from the office because, like, she knows Lindsay the way I know Lindsay. So I shoot a quick text to her, give her the point of view, give her the backstory. She goes seasoned. So I'm like, I'm feeling confident now. I grabbed those seasoned breadcrumbs. I did find my son a ramen noodles ugly Christmas sweater for $1.59 on clearance. So I check out. I get to my car. I have a text from Lindsay. Do you know what kind of breadcrumbs Lindsay wants? Original.
I wouldn't make do with any of them.
Have you ever exchanged breadcrumbs at the customer service desk?
She literally just told me this before we started recording this.
And then my phone's ringing. You know who it is? Lindsay. I'm sweating in my winter coat at the customer service desk with breadcrumbs. And she's like, do you miss me? No, Lindsay, I don't. I don't miss you. So I did. I exchanged $3 breadcrumbs.
I cannot believe that she exchanged them. I would have taken both of them. I would have taken both of them.
I know you would have.
I am really not that picky.
I had a task and I was not going to fail.
But I do have to say, I already have Italian panko breadcrumbs, and I was like, you can't really season your chicken wings, your cauliflower wings with Italian breadcrumbs. It just doesn't seem fitting.
Okay. Well,
so in our next episode, I will let you know how the cauliflower wings turned out. They are
hanging on the edge. We know you're hanging on the edge of your seat.
I'm so excited to try them tonight.
God bless you.
Okay. So we'll keep this story up in the next one. So that way you know how it turned out. But thank you, Emily. Thank you for all
You're welcome.
All the hard work for that one.
You're welcome.
Dork. All right. I love this. I'm actually taller than you for once.
Yeah, I'm not.
Emily's having some back issues, so she's slouching down and I can't do that. So no. I get to look taller than her today. All right. So we talked about in our last podcast that we were going to include a quote from a book or something that sparked interest to us. So we're going to go back to Personal and Authentic, the book study that we're doing, because on page 110, it talked about the critical consuming. And we'll talk about this a little bit, the cycle of critical consuming and how it brings inspiration and creative work. So on page 110, it talked about the ongoing cycle that starts with critical and consuming. This is where you would ask questions, seek out new ideas, you're curating information and geeking out on your craft. And I feel like that's what teachers are doing all the time. And teachers want to learn about new things, but they want to know about the practicality of it in their classroom. They become inspired. And then that's where their creative juices start flowing. Like, okay, I've learned this. Now I want to take that into the classroom. And I want to create something for my students. So as we were reading this, we were like, yes, this is what teachers do, but this is also what we do, like in our job every day. We have a lot of mandates that are coming down from the state, and we feel like it's our role to help serve our teachers. And I think of this, like, we want our teachers to be critical consumers. So we want to provide professional development by them being hands-on, and them leaving with tools and resources so that way they can start implementing in their classroom immediately. Because again, that's where that creative work comes from.
Yeah. And we came from the classroom, we've been teachers, and I know we've all sat in subpar professional development. And I think what's different between critical consumption in education and critical consumption in other fields is there actually is a lot at stake. And we don't take it lightly that when you're given ideas or when you're given new content to take to your classroom, that there are anywhere between 25 and 75 lives that could be impacted by what you deliver to them. And so that critical consumption loop that we see there, I would argue education might be one of the most important places that we think about the critical consumption, because there are so many people impacted by this cycle here. So it's so important for us when we're building professional development that you don't walk away more confused or more overwhelmed or more frustrated than you were when you came in. Because like I said, we've all been through professional development where we walk away going, gosh, I wish I would have been in my classroom. Like that was time that I could have spent doing something else.
Yeah. And so as we get through today's session, that's kind of what we're going to be talking about. So we just want to keep that in the back of your mind, because we're going to go back to the golden circle with the why, the what, and the how. And we'll be talking about some of those mandates and how we are doing our best to make that professional development fall within this cycle.
Yeah.
So we'll get started with that. So like we said, we're going to transition into that golden circle, which we had in our last episode. And we're going to just briefly talk about the why, the how, and the what. And we're going to talk about this in regards to the dyslexia and the science of reading and the professional development that we do. So we'll first just start off with our why. And our why in our position is really to empower our teachers. We want our teachers to leave our professional development and actually feel empowered when they leave, and not just be given a ton of information that it's like overload and then they aren't sure what to do with it. The how really comes around the information that we are sharing. And then our what is our high quality professional development. And we're going to briefly talk about the dyslexia training that we do with our teachers. This started 2 years ago when we started doing it with our K1 and then our 2-3 teachers. When we went through the dyslexia training, we constantly were asking ourselves the why and how we could empower our teachers by them going through the dyslexia training. And we know that it could be done completely online, but knew that that would not be best practice, because we knew that teachers would want to go back to that like critical consuming cycle, right? Like be given the information in person, feel that inspiration, and then have the tools to do the creative work in the classroom. So what we did, were you going to chime in there?
I was just going to say, for those of you who haven't lived in this world with us for the last 2 years, there was dyslexia legislation, because some of you are maybe getting whispers about trainings that you're going to have to do. So there was dyslexia legislation that passed a couple years ago. It's been on the books for a couple of years now. So if you are a middle or high school teacher, maybe you haven't heard much about this yet. Your kindergarten through third grade teachers have been working on this for the last 2 years. So when we say dyslexia training, that's what we're talking about. And then we'll give further details of that connection between the dyslexia training and the science of reading trainings that you're probably starting to get whispers about as well. We'll elaborate on those a little bit. But for those of you who didn't live in the world with us, the dyslexia training, which was mandated by the state for K-3 teachers, that was rolled out on the learning management system completely online. And then we took it from there.
Yeah. So then Emily and I, we went through training to be facilitators for that. And then we basically did that training in person. So that way the teachers had the tools and resources. So we were like, how can we get them all the tools and resources that they need? So that way they feel empowered and they can start putting these practices into play within their classroom. So we decided to make a guidebook, and it is completely off of the content that is given in the learning management system. But we basically took all those tools and resources and put it into a guidebook. So that way we could walk the teachers through it and they could then use this as a resource afterwards. So next year, the 412 intervention specialist, and we also encourage other teachers beyond that to go through the dyslexia training in person. We are doing the same thing because we had such good reviews from those K-3 teachers who are now doing the great work in the classroom. We feel like that really is best practice because they left with the tools and resources to start implementing immediately.
Yeah. And we're doing the same thing with 4 through 12 content. So it's not going to be a repeat of the K-3 dyslexia. Because again, my background is in secondary ELA. So we are taking the 4 through 12 dyslexia information. And if you remember at the beginning when Lindsay was talking about the creative or the critical consuming cycle, part of that is being able to ask questions and being able to not just take the information at face value. And that's what we want teachers to be able to do. Because some of the information that people are receiving in the dyslexia is counterintuitive to the work that they've been doing for most of their career. And we are sensitive to that. And because I had epiphanies, like I illustrated in the last podcast episode, that I had epiphanies about my own practice. So some of this information is actually a little bit hard to digest. So we like to have that in-person atmosphere so you can ask those questions and we'll be honest, and your peers are there as well. And we've yet to be asked a question that we haven't been asked twice at a different district or with a different teacher. So that's what's so incredibly important about it being in person, because if you don't trust the information that you're getting and you don't get a chance to ask questions and validate that information, you're human. You're not going to apply that when the education of students is at stake. So that's something that's so important. And it goes with our why about you feeling empowered with the information and confident with the information that you get to drive your instruction and that critical consumption cycle that you're engaging with us.
And I was just going to go off of that. So when we did the K-3 training, questions were brought up on a consistent basis, and we had a frequently asked questions document that we put together. After the training, we had everybody complete a survey just to give us feedback because we wanted to know how to improve our training. But we also wanted to know what are some next steps that teachers need, because you're going to go through the training. You're going to be given a ton of information, but then you're going to ask yourself, okay, now what do I do in my classroom for this or this? And we took that information to then build off of that. So that way we can continue some professional development that's going to meet the needs of those individual teachers. And I think we will talk about some professional development that we will be offering this summer. So that way you have a little bit of background as to where it's coming from and why we are doing the professional development that we are doing.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, you engage in professional development to improve your practice. And we go to professional development ourselves to improve our practice to feed into that. So that creative cycle, and you guys are ultimately doing what you're doing for the benefit of students. And at the end of the day, again, if we return back to the why from the very beginning, the reason all of us got into education was to have some sort of impact on the lives of students as they engage in future work. And this literacy work that we're all doing in the state of Ohio, including the teachers, is really so incredibly important as we're working through this. So we think that every bit of attention that it deserves need to be paid to it. We don't want you sitting alone on a computer doing it by yourself.
Yeah. So I think that kind of brings us to the next,
the next part of
segment, or I don't know what we call it. So as we've been talking about the professional development, as you know, we talked about how those K-3 teachers went through the dyslexia training the past 2 years. And within that training that we did in person, we asked for feedback from those teachers. And one of the questions that we asked is, what are some additional professional development offerings that you want in regard to this topic? And from the feedback, we found out that many of them want some additional resources, strategies, tools, tips, things that they can implement into their classroom immediately beyond just the content that we gave them for the dyslexia. So this summer, we will be offering a structured literacy interactive workshop. It'll take place on June 4th, and it will be from 9 to noon. And it's going to focus on the phonological awareness, phonics, fluency, vocab, and comprehension. And this is going to be a make and take. So that way teachers will be able to make things to then implement into their classroom immediately. So there is a cost associated with it for the materials. So anybody that's part of our teaching and learning, it would be $25. And then other districts beyond that can still come, and the cost would be $75. We will be showing you in the next clip how you can get to the professional development that we're talking about here on our website. And all these registrations are currently open, so people can start registering. The other training that we are doing, and we have already kind of spoke about this, would be the 412 dyslexia training. Many of our admin have already started pushing this out, but we're going to be doing 2 days at the ESC that will take place in person. And there's multiple flyers because we will have multiple offerings. So we'll show you how to get to those flyers. But that is that 412 dyslexia training that is required for the intervention specialists. But best practice is that there are additional teachers. We think like the ELA teachers for sure would also be attending that. And then the last one would be,
we have our Soul to Story podcast study that is, if you can't make it to the ESC, this is totally online. And it is asynchronous, which is at your own pace within the window. We're running that from June 3rd to July 19th. And that, if you're not familiar, Emily Hanford, she produced this podcast because when COVID hit, parents kind of started to notice that their students were struggling with fluency. So she just kind of took a deep dive into how we got to where we are right now. And it is a great precursor to any dyslexia or even science of reading training, because it will give you a why, or at least kind of an idea of how to generate your own why. So again, that is totally asynchronous. You can sign up for that. You'll be able to do it on your own at your own pace, as long as it's completed within that window. So that one's free, right?
Yeah, that one's completely free.
So,
well, it's free for our teaching and learning.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody beyond that, it is $100 because there's work definitely on our end to be checking all the assignments and all of that. But yeah, and all that information again is going to be on our website. So we're going to show you that next. So we're going to show you how you can get to all of our professional development offerings. The first thing you'll need to go to is the Mercer County ESC website. So it's mercercountyesc.org. When you go there, up at the top, we have a tab for professional development. And when you click on that, you will be able to see a variety of professional development that we have ongoing. But for our summer professional development, it is going to be towards the top. When you click on that, this will break it down by in-person sessions, along with any kind of book or podcast studies that are taking place. So the ones that we briefly discussed would be the structured literacy, which is that interactive workshop. We also have the dyslexia trainings. The one thing that we want to point out is that this is open to our teaching and learning districts first. These sessions will open up to all districts beginning April 30th beyond just our ESC. So just so you know that if you register and you are not part of our teaching and learning, if we were to get to max capacity of the 100, then you'll just be put on a wait list and we would let you know that. So just so you know for your information. The book and podcast studies are down here. And when you click on these, it will bring you to the registration. So we just wanted to quickly show you that. And the registration links are down underneath these. So you can just click that button and then you can register. All right. The moment you've all been waiting for. The moment that Emily has been waiting for, legit, from the beginning of this podcast all the way till now. She is so excited for her time to shine, she said.
Yeah, this is the only part I'm actually good at.
Actually, I might shine because I might get the answer right.
Okay, let's hear if you... Okay, you ready?
Okay.
Hey, this actually isn't formatted quite like a joke, but did you hear about the fish who signed up for a marathon? He did it for the halibut.
Oh my. Now
you got to give them context. I give the jokes.
Okay. So
the halibut, do you get it?
I get it, but they need to know the context. That's why we went with a running joke. Because was it last weekend?
Yes, it was last
I
weekend.
think it was last weekend. I had been signed up for a half marathon for quite some time, and it is this coming weekend. And I decided Emily should run it with me. And so Emily agreed, right? You did agree. And it didn't take that much. It did not take me that long to convince you.
Yeah. Okay.
It really didn't. And so she agreed to do it. So then Easter came. And I was stung by a wasp. And it ended up turning into this whole thing. And then I was told that I may not be able to run on Sunday. But I am to the point where I am healed and I'm doing so much better that I will be able to run with you.
I'll be doing the next podcast alone.
No, she will not. It is going to be just fine.
We'll see when we come back after the next one. So you have to watch the next one to know if Lindsay survives.
To know if I survived. I
might just tell a joke to myself next time.
You're such a dork.
Maybe. I don't know.
You're such a dork.